Welcome into another edition of Sport Ball. You know who I am. You know who these guys are. It's your boys. We're back. How you guys doing?
Hanging in there. It's a interesting time for all of us, but hey, we're making the most of it, I think.
I think about how weird it is in this time that we're living in. Like at this point, it just feels normal. Mm-hmm. And once all this is said and done, it's going to feel weird to actually live a normal life again.
Yeah.
Because this has become normal life.
I found myself watching The Office and shows, and then I'm like, oh my God. Certain times they go outside and I'm like, watch out, don't get too close.
I think that too.
But it's yeah.
I saw both of you separately in a socially distant manner the last 2 days, so it's been fine for me.
Yeah.
I finally dropped off Kyle's precious mug that he won off me based on who won the Super Bowl.
That was a great bet.
What was that bet even? Didn't I pick the Chiefs though?
No. Well, we had a bet before it was in place.
Oh yeah. It was about the Patriots. If the Patriots won the Super Bowl, I got a Patriots mug. If anybody else won the Super Bowl, I bought Kyle the mug of the winning team. I don't know if I was drunk when I made that bet. I mean, that's a terrible bet.
Yeah, that was Halloween night that we made that.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah.
Would you even want a Patriots mug?
No.
You're not a Patriots fan.
To be clear. I also got Kyle probably the shittiest mug possible. It literally just lists all of the players on the Chiefs team.
That's literally it. It's just red and yellow.
It's just a list of 50 names.
Nice.
It's great though. It's a nice size mug.
It is a nice size mug. It's been sitting on my counter for weeks, and I've thought about using it many times.
I wouldn't have, held it against you. Speaking of mugs, I got these sweet ass cups last week, and I can't stop using them.
Ooh,
what tell us nice about them? Stainless steel?
Yeah, they're like what are those cups called? You know the ones I'm talking about, Yetis. Except they're Stanley. Stanley's been around longer. And I swear, this keeps stuff colder longer than a Yeti does.
They just have less marketing. Okay. They got less PR people out there.
Yeah.
This is, it's Cinco de Mayo, isn't it?
True.
I believe it is.
It's our Cinco de Mayo special pod.
I had a burrito for dinner.
Nice.
Homemade, yeah. And I didn't even think about this. I had a quesadilla for lunch.
Oh my God.
It's really celebrating.
I mean, I eat so much Mexican food normally that I feel like it would just be a normal day, so.
Yeah, that's how I felt too.
Honestly, it's a good thing we're back because fans have been clamoring for this podcast. And by fans, I mean one of my friends said, "Where's the next episode?" Shout out to Chuck.
One of my friends mentioned it offhand.
He's like, I don't care either way. I'm not clamoring, but if you were to come back with another episode.
You don't have to tell me, but I just make it small talk because there's nothing else to say.
Yeah, so this episode we thought we talk a little about the NFL draft that happened last week, a little NFL offseason, and then give you a little NBA at the end, just to give you a taste, Not that we ever hit any other sports, so.
Even though it's called sport ball.
Right. But, I mean, how many sports really have a ball,
And I feel like it's every time we do an episode, I kind of, not every time, but oftentimes I do a disclaimer well, I haven't really watched any of this, or I don't actually know what I'm talking about. So it's kind of funny because, we have this sport ball podcast, and that's the name of it, but really I only watch basketball and, the Vikings and the Seahawks.
Listen, we don't pretend to be experts. I mean, we do, but this is really for entertainment.
Yeah. Mostly, we were just here to disagree with Kyle and try to bring his arrogance back to earth a little bit.
Yeah, we're really here just to try to prove Kyle wrong.
You guys keep me grounded. I need this.
Good. All right. Well, we might as well start off with the NFL draft recap. Happened last week because since it was the one actual sports thing that's occurred in the last month, I actually paid attention to it, which I feel like I don't normally pay attention to the NFL draft that much. Kyle watches a lot of college football, but me and Seth famously don't. The remote draft seemed to work surprisingly well.
Some might say better than in-person draft.
Yeah,
I think they're in trouble for next year. Because so many of the coaches came out and they were saying like how much better and how much more enjoyable it was being able to stay at home and spend time with their families when usually they spend like the month leading up to the draft or sometimes even longer just at their facilities going over all these players and stuff. And it's like, yeah, you along with the rest of the workforce over the last however many months realized we could get shit done without actually going into work every single day.
Right. Yeah, that's the best. That's been the, one of the only bright spots out of this pandemic is getting to spend more time at home and realizing how much you can really get away with doing at home. I mean, obviously not everyone's job is like that, but certainly for these guys, it worked out pretty well. I mean, these were like, the shocking part was most of these are old men who can barely work technology and got there with no snafus. I mean, it was pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Dave Gettleman had a mask on sideways in his home, in his basement by himself. So he was really protected.
I would say you
That's
can't be
such
too
a terribly
safe,
run franchise.
Sideways doesn't help you too much.
So I don't understand how people don't just understand, like, I guess it's common sense, but stuff, I don't know.
Well, no one who's running the New York Giants could have common sense, or the New York Knicks for that matter.
Or the Jets.
Yeah, it's just a New York tradition. How the New York Islanders
in the water.
Are probably pretty well run.
I think they went off deep end a while ago.
Yeah, see, there you go. So biggest story of the draft in many's eyes was the Packers trading up to draft a quarterback at the end of the first round, Jordan Love. And I'll just go first so you can just disregard each of my claims after I make them, Kyle. I guess my hot take is that look, a lot of people at the moment and the day after and since have said, which you might say is all the time possible.
The moment of the day after. But the day before, no one was saying this.
Nobody said anything the day before. A lot of people lambasted it, and
rightfully so.
Said the Packers were stupid for not getting a wide receiver or an offensive weapon for Aaron Rodgers, and instead drafting who might be his successor. I guess my hot take is I don't really mind the pick that much. I mean, I've heard the arguments against it. I guess I'll just go through them and say why I don't really think they're that valid, and then Kyle, you can tell me why I'm wrong. Number one, people say that, okay, they started taking a wide receiver in that spot. I just don't think there's really that much of a guarantee that if they took a wide receiver in that spot that he would really contribute this year and next year for contending. Like, I mean, I was reading an article by Bill Barnwell, which I sent to you, Kyle, and one of the stats in there was that on average, picks in that range of wide receivers, their first 2 years, they net 1,151 yards. So, in comparison, MVS, Marquise Valdez-Scantling, who's already on the team, had 1,033 yards in his first 2 years. So right on average, I mean, there's no guarantee that the wide receiver they pick is going to be any better than the wide receiver they already have on their team in MVS, right? And you look at the kind of just like history and who's been picked in that spot, it's a very wide range, ranging from DeAndre Hopkins, okay, big hit there, to someone like Laquan Treadwell, who's I think Seth will.
How dare you?
Seth will attest. Didn't really contribute to winning in any of his years on the field, and I mean, just look at N'Keal Harry for the Patriots, right? Did he contribute to their winning last year? Not really.
He also didn't play a whole lot, but
yeah, he didn't play a lot, but that probably.
Bill Belichick never. I mean, it's the Patriots. Bill Belichick never plays like rookie players pretty much ever. He's like Popovich.
True. But also, okay, I do agree that like this is a deep wide receiver class and they should have taken a wide receiver offensive weapon at some point. And I think it's very curious that they didn't. But I have more of a problem with their next pick being a running back in the second.
I agree with that for sure.
Which is like you have Aaron Jones and you have Jamal Williams and you decide to take your second round pick on a running back instead of a pass catcher. Like that's
what I was gonna say is that's the more outrageous like mistake that I don't understand at all. Then the quarterback, I think it sounds like they're just trying to prepare a little bit in advance for a team without Aaron Rodgers. I don't know exactly the details, if it's just like the personalities are, there's a rift there to such extent that it's like a foregone conclusion that he'll leave when his contract is up after this season, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or if they're just like it's a possibility or whatever. But I don't think it's a horrible thing to try to like plan ahead like that. I think knowing Aaron Rodgers and how offended he could be from something like this. I mean, maybe that was a mistake, but at the same time, you can't let Aaron Rodgers Aaron Rodgers' pride run your team and make your decisions. But I don't understand the running back pick at all. That I don't get that at all.
And to your point, it's one thing not to plan around Aaron Rodgers' feelings. I mean, I think if they were planning on doing this and didn't at least talk to him about it and warn him about it before, and that's wrong of them. Okay, that's your star player. You should at least tell him what your plan is. And I think he said privately that they didn't tell him, and that's a mistake. But and then a lot of people, they're saying, okay, so in my mind, this isn't way different from when they drafted Rodgers while they're contending with Favre.
Way different.
Okay, now you could say it's way different because of two factors, right? You could say that Love is a way worse prospect than Aaron Rodgers, right?
Much,
which might be true. It might be true,
it is. He wasn't even the best quarterback in his conference last year.
Right, he threw 17 interceptions last year. That's not what you want to see. That's in fact more than Aaron Rodgers ever
threw about interceptions.
I don't care about interceptions.
And I don't watch college football, but it doesn't seem like he's the greatest prospect. But I mean, there was a reason Aaron Rodgers dropped in the draft too. I'm not saying that Love is as good as Rodgers as a prospect, or that he'll ever be as good as Rodgers. Okay, but I mean, this is the same time frame they drafted Favre's replacement, and if they think they like the player, that just grab the asset. I mean, I realize that rookie contracts are less expensive these days. I mean, when Aaron Rodgers was drafted, according to Barnwell, he got 5 years, $7.7 million, which would be $17.8 million today. Jordan Love's probably only get $12 million around. Okay, so obviously that's a more valuable asset, but it's not like that asset's going to go to waste. Like either you get a really cheap backup quarterback who replaces an often injured and old Aaron Rodgers. B, he's the successor to Aaron Rodgers in 2 years when Aaron Rodgers is gone. Or C, you trade him for another asset. Like, I feel like Jordan Love on a rookie contract, even if he may be your backup for a couple years, is more valuable than a 50-50 chance at a wide receiver in the late first round.
That's not true.
At least it can be argued that it's not like that stupid of a prospect in my mind.
No, he's a terrible prospect. They didn't need to waste extra draft capital to trade up. What did they trade up? 1 or 2 spots?
That I agree with.
Quarterback that would have fallen to them probably in the second round, or they could have traded up into the early second and used their first round pick on a wide receiver, which is needed. Like, Jordan Love is absolutely terrible. He's not accurate, and that's the hardest thing. Like, obviously, you guys know I love Mike Leach, and that's the biggest thing about Mike Leach when he's recruiting quarterbacks is accuracy, because that's the hardest thing to teach a quarterback, especially when you're at the NFL level. If you're not accurate in high school, if you're not accurate at the college level, what makes you think being at the highest level in the world, you're just automatically going to become accurate, like against the best talent that there is? Like it doesn't happen. So to waste, trade up and waste, in my opinion, a pick on that, like you said, it's going to be, maybe 2 years until we see him. Like, I wouldn't want him being my primary backup if Aaron Rodgers goes down. I'd rather would have paid $4 million for Andy Dalton. Like,
the red rifle.
That makes a lot more sense as a backup than a rookie who sucked in college. Plus, this
Yeah,
is
that-
the
I mean,
deepest
listen,
wide
if-
receiver class that we've seen in at least the last 5 years. Like these players, these wide receivers that went at the end of the first round, even the beginning and the middle of the second round, they could have been and probably would have been first round wide receivers the last couple years. That's how deep it was. And the fact that they didn't use any of their draft capital on these prospects that showed how good they were in college, and knowing how well we have, stats and stuff that could identify players that produce well in college and typically, more often than not, produce well in the pros. These late first round, early second, mid second round wide receivers were all part of that group that had early breakout ages. Like they dominated the target shares and the touchdown shares very early in their college careers, like their first and second years. Those are big factors in determining if you're going to be a good wide receiver at the NFL level. And these players all did that. And they just said, fuck it, let's get a quarterback that's bad. And then knowing that, like I said, they're going to wait at least 2 years, right? And having a rookie quarterback on that contract is one of the most efficient ways to, build the rest of your lineup to get to a Super Bowl, because you don't usually, like Aaron Rodgers is making now 20-something million, almost, or close to that. Like if you could save 13, 14, $15 million and be able to allocate that elsewhere for a longer amount of time, that lengthens your window to be able to, make it to the Super Bowl and have a chance. But now they have to pay Aaron Rodgers, and this salary, or Jordan Love's just going to sit on the bench, and they're going to waste that opportunity, those 2 to 3 years where they could have spent, just focus on Aaron Rodgers and what he could do now.
Yeah,
And
but he's so cheap. That's like making my point for me. He's an asset, right?
No, but it's not. That's the thing. Like I'm just saying, they're wasting that. Like Patrick Mahomes, right? Like,
yeah,
it allows the team, the quicker you can get your rookie quarterback playing as your starter, the longer you have, the wider window you have to be able to make it to the Super Bowl, because you can invest money into other like important positions. Like,
definitely.
it's just, so to me, it's a waste to have him sit there and, just not use. It just doesn't make sense. Like you don't.
I mean, they're still going to get a couple years out of him. I mean, Aaron Rodgers is 36. If he just plays to the end of his contract, and then Jordan Love starts in 2021, that's still a good asset, If you want to strike now.
He's not good. One.
Well,
two,
that's another point.
It's not like you're going to have Aaron Rodgers. He's not going to help this kid. Especially with what they did.
Because I know Favre didn't help him. So
yeah, I know, but Aaron Rodgers doesn't even talk to his fucking family.
This is the most spiteful man. That pick was just pure comedy when it happened, because we all knew Aaron Rodgers was going to react in the exact way that he did. I mean, this man holds a grudge more than any other athlete in pro football that we know. And just watching that pick scroll through, you're like, okay, well, he's going to be pissed about that, huh?
The Packers are just definitely done.
The other thing, though, that people have argued is, like, they're acting like the Packers are one offensive weapon away from the Super Bowl, which we all agreed last year they were pretenders. Like, they were not a real contender. I mean, they went 13-3, but their Pythagorean win total or whatever was like 9.5. It was like they should have been 9-7, and their DVOA, which I love, was 10th, which is on par with the fucking Eagles, who are trash. And they were 6-1 in games that were 7 points or less apart, which, as we know, Kyle loves that stat because that means you got lucky. Okay, so this is not a good team. Like, this is a good team. This is not a Super Bowl contending team, and they're not a wide receiver away from going to the Super Bowl. That's why I feel like people were so mad that they didn't.
But you're going to tell me that they were a backup quarterback away from going to the Super Bowl?
No, absolutely not. But that's why I said I don't have as much
those assets. Use those assets to better your team now. While Aaron Rodgers is at the end. He's not done with his career, but he's definitely not at the peak anymore. He's on the downswing, but he's still a better quarterback than 30% of the NFL at least.
Yeah.
45, 50 maybe percent, right? So use the asset to get a player that can contribute immediately and help your team win now while your window with Aaron Rodgers is still there.
I also just feel like rookie wide receivers don't contribute that often right away. Like, they picked up Devin Funchess in the offseason. There's been talks of them getting like AJ Green or Kenny Stills. Why not just do that instead of taking a chance on a look? They should have taken a wide receiver at some point in the draft, okay? But it's not like there aren't other avenues to getting a wide receiver that can help you right now, and maybe avenues that are more likely to contribute.
But they're also going to have to give up extra assets to do that. So you just buried yourself even more. You wasted an asset on a backup quarterback. You wasted even more assets to get that backup quarterback. And now to get another wide receiver to help you out, you're going to have to waste future assets. It's
What I see is that clearly the Packers are rating Jordan Love higher than most people, certainly higher than Kyle is. I have no idea how good he is. I have no opinion on that. So that's like, setting that aside, I don't think it's a horrible decision to say, okay, no matter what we do in the draft, like, we're not going to be able to make the Super Bowl next year. So how can we plan the best for the future? And they see this quarterback who, rightly or wrongly, they really like, and they say, okay, I'm going to take this guy. We're going to develop him for a year or two. Then he'll become the starter. And we believe like that's our best chance for success in 2, 3, 4 years. Like, I don't think that line of thinking is crazy. I don't think that's the pick I would have done. And certainly, like, if their scouting was just wrong on Jordan Love, then that makes it even worse. But I don't think like that thought process is necessarily totally flawed. I mean, ideally, you'd have the Mahomes situation, right, where you get someone who's already really great in your like starting in his second year, game one, and then you have that cheap contract and you can spend your money elsewhere. But that isn't a situation you can just replicate all the time.
Mm-hmm.
What if I told you they spent assets to move up to acquire Josh Allen that was less accurate and also couldn't run the football?
Yeah, I think the scouting of Jordan Love is a different question because, like, I never watched him play or anyone else in college. So,
yeah, I feel like
trading up to get him was dumb for sure.
I agree. I think that where we can all land is that they should have taken wide receiver at some point. Trading up was dumb. If they were wrong about their scouting on Jordan Love, which Kyle thinks they definitely are, then they fucked up the pick, obviously. There's no question about that. But on its face, I don't have a huge problem with it.
Let's see.
Silence.
How about on the back of its head? Do you have a huge problem with it or just not on its face?
The back of its head's fine.
Okay.
No problems here. Kyle, do you want to move on or do you have any parting shots?
No, I mean, it was a terrible pick. The Packers are done for as we know it. So
disband the team. They should never be in Green Bay anyway. The town's like 14,000 people.
I feel like I can almost guarantee you that next year they also draft a quarterback in the first 2 rounds.
That would be really funny.
Because they're going to get this guy, he's going to practice, and they're going to be like, holy shit, what happened? Aaron Rodgers now has 1 less year on his contract, and he already hates us. We need another quarterback. That's what's going to happen.
It was funny because that happened with the Cardinals. I mean, very different situation, but they drafted Josh Rosen and like, wow, this kid's ass. And then they drafted Kyler Murray. It worked out pretty well for them. So,
Yeah. Sometimes
that strategy works.
That's just how the draft is. Like, you're not going to get everything right. So I think it's smart for the teams to like, it's the teams who are smart realize their mistakes early on and they don't just try to like forge ahead because they invested a first-round pick on this kid.
Yeah, the Bears would never do that though.
Right.
We don't have a first-round pick for the next 8 years. What are you talking about?
Yeah, but we have Mitch Trubisky, our hero and savior.
We declined his 5th-year option. He's gone.
And he's a backup. He probably won't even start in the XFL, do you think?
No,
I mean, the league's disbanded,
the XFL's
but still.
gone, so. Fucking coronavirus took so many great things away from us, and now
couldn't even
I don't
start
even
in my
want to
backyard.
confront. I don't want to confront Matt about this. I don't. That's the one thing I don't want to go into the office about. I don't want to have to see Matt and hear him say something about you owe me $5-10 because the XFL didn't make it. You know what didn't make
Did you guys
it?
not have a
Humanity.
Did you not have a pandemic clause in your bet?
I didn't pay for the pandemic. No, I didn't pay for the insurance. I know. I fucked up. I know
Big
now.
mistake there.
All right. Let's talk about other QB landing spots. So Tua went to Miami. Joe Burrow to Cincy. Herbert the Burbert went to the Chargers.
You mean Herbert the pervert?
Jalen Hurts went to Philadelphia. Seth, why don't you start off and tell us why you love Tua and he's going to have the best career?
All right. Well, I listen to one podcast. So, therefore, I know everything there is to know about Tua. I think I know how to pronounce his last name. Tagovailoa?
Yep.
That sounds right.
That's right. That's how Field Yates says it. I trust him. So, it sounds like the biggest question with him is injury. And that, I feel like that's just an inherent risk with a lot of guys, and some more than others. But setting that aside, I did watch some highlights. He does apparently, like all the scouts are saying, that just the way that the ball leaves his hand and like the tightness of the spiral and the arc of the ball and all that kind of stuff is like top notch for sure. Plus he's a lefty, and there's something about lefties that really gets me going, both in football and basketball and tennis.
I thought you were going to say and in the bedroom, but
in the bedroom, that goes without saying, but it's just like, I don't know, it looks different, and maybe because it's the minority, it just like feels cooler to me. But that was exciting. So it seemed like, based on my limited knowledge, this was a draft that had two really top level prospects, at least quarterback prospects, with Burrow and Tua. So, and I did think it was cool after since the beginning of last year's football season, like the whole thing, people were talking about tanking for Tua. And for a while, it seemed like the Dolphins were really tanking. They like traded half their team, and they were really bad for a while. And then towards the tail end of the season, they kind of win some games. They beat the Patriots. And then they end up with the 5th pick. And then they get Tua anyways.
I know.
So it's kind of like poetic. I thought that was cool.
Yeah, I like that. Kyle, what do you think?
I like it. Obviously, we know how good of a prospect Tua is, and all signs are pointing to him being healthy. It's scary because, the Dolphins didn't have a great offensive line last year. Now they did invest some draft capital in some offensive line help, but who knows if that's going to be an immediate help or not. I just saw this earlier today. Where'd it go? That Tua was only hit or sacked on only 77 dropbacks his entire college career.
Wow.
Ryan Fitzpatrick last season was hit or sacked on 132 dropbacks. So, that could be worrisome, right? That's if that offensive line doesn't improve at all. But there's not much to say about him. He's one of the best quarterback prospects we've seen, in, I don't know, last 5 years or so, 5, 6. He's
I mean, I feel like if he
accurate,
didn't have
he's
any
great under pressure, he's, like everything Seth was saying, he's throws a pretty ball. It definitely looks nice because he's left-handed too. It's not something you see all the time. So it's definitely going to be exciting. I really like what the Dolphins overall did. Like they're taking, ever since their change in coach and GM, they've taken a very analytical approach to the whole draft process and kind of everything else. And it's just, someone like me, that's definitely something cool to see, like kind of following the footsteps of, they're not there yet, obviously, but how the Baltimore Ravens are running things. That's kind of the vibe I get from this front office in Miami now.
Yeah, I feel like if there weren't any injury concerns, Tua would have been number one, like without a doubt, right?
I don't know. Joe Burrow had
like the greatest
the best
football quarterback history.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But it's weird because I feel like he was like mediocre the year before, and then he just comes onto the scene. Whereas Tua, like for the last 2 years, we know who he is. He's been this incredible. Also, I heard like his hip is better than it was before, which like I was hearing. I forgot who said this. I think it was Ryan Russillo, where he's like, I hear like every time that I have an injury that it's better than it was before. Like, is there ever a time a surgeon comes out of the room and they're like, I didn't really bring it this time?
That's a good point.
What about Herbert? What you heard about Herbert the Burbert?
So he is basically Josh Allen 2.0.
Isn't he really tall?
Yeah. Yep. Tall, big hands. Exactly what the old school front offices love about quarterbacks. Mm-hmm. He checks all those boxes. Big hands, tall, sees over the line. Who gives a shit?
I read an entire article about how quarterbacks over 6'5" just don't succeed in the NFL. But I think the conclusion was basically if you're 6'5" and over, you play another sport and you just never end up being a quarterback. And that's kind of what happens.
Not if you're John Elway. You scout for 6'5" or over. If you don't hit the 6'5" threshold, John Elway is not looking at you.
I feel like in the NFL, it's like you're under 6'0". Ooh, we're worried. You're over 6'5", you're fucked. You got to be within those 5 inches. Otherwise, you're not an NFL quarterback.
Okay, I didn't read this article, but
what do you think happened to him?
Could it just be like could it just be there are fewer people who are like 6'5" than there are who are like 6 feet, and that's why there haven't been as many quarterbacks? I mean, Tom Brady's 6'4", so
there's a certain threshold though where there's never been like a good quarterback over it, which is kind of weird, I guess. I mean, a lot of it is like you say, just 6'10"? Like if you're really tall, you play basketball or volleyball, and also there aren't that many really tall people. But also when you see really tall quarterbacks, they get away with a lot of bullshit when they're younger because they're bigger than everyone, so they can just like sling the ball around with no mechanics, and they're not really athletic as often. They don't have to learn how to be an athlete as well as maybe the smaller guys. Was one of the other theses of the piece. So they just kind of like mechanic and kind of stiff by the time they get to the NFL. I mean, I'm stiff right now, but I'm 5'8". So.
I'm just saying if a quarterback is tall, that doesn't mean they're going to fail. I think height pretty much doesn't matter.
I don't give a shit about how tall you are as long as you can run and you're athletic. If you have accuracy and you can run, that's all that you should be looking for in a quarterback. I mean, I guess Joe Burrow's not really. I mean, that's not true. He did run a decent amount last year.
Yeah, I think he's sneaky athletic.
He is. He's one of those sneaky athletes. Yeah,
kind of an Aaron Rodgers type.
Yeah, kind of like a Jordan Love type,
but not quite as good.
He's so bad, dude. Let me tell you, I watched some Utah State games because they played late. Because they played late, so it'd be like a Saturday night. And
it's one of those that's on like ESPN 10 or 11 like 9 p.m.
Yeah, it's like, oh wow. Utah State's playing Nevada.
Yeah.
Let's see what's happening. Plus, obviously, Jordan Love had some hype going into the season, too.
Yeah.
So, and it was just like, stupid ass. Yeah, Herbert, though, he'll be interesting.
Yeah.
I think it's being drafted to the Chargers, though, is probably one of the best outcomes for him.
Yeah.
Just because having Austin Eckler now, he's such a reliable check down guy to where if Herbert does get, flushed out of the pocket or something, Eckler is very reliable out of the backfield to be able to take just a little drop, check down pass, take it 5-10 yards like nothing. Plus you got, big receiver in Mike Williams. You got one of the best young tight ends. Like he landed in a very great spot, especially not having to put up most likely a ton of points, considering their defense is probably going to be top 3 in the league based on what they've had plus what they invested in the draft.
Do you think we should go ahead and trademark Herbert the Burbert before he does, or
what's a Burbert?
It's a Herbert. He is the Burbert.
I'm not about it.
So you're gonna let him trademark it first. That's fine. I didn't know what the timing was gonna be like. Let's quickly hit. Let's hit these next 2 positions pretty quickly. Running backs, their landing spots from the draft. Kyle, maybe you can speak to this. Clyde Edwards-Helaire went to the Chiefs. DeAndre Swift went to the Lions. Why? Who knows? Jonathan Taylor went to the Colts. Who do you think makes the most immediate impact next season, Kyle?
Yeah, I think it's hands down should be Clyde Edwards-Helaire with the most immediate impact. Now, these coaches are saying that both Clyde and Jonathan Taylor, that it's still going to be a committee, but, I don't foresee that really. I could see that more with Jonathan Taylor. However, Andy Reid has never really been the committee type coach in the backfield. Like last year, there was some stuff, right, with Damian Williams and then trading for, what's his name, the old dude?
I wanted to say Jamal Charles, but that's not right.
No. Either way, you know who I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Plus, they had some injury stuff going on. Like, that's just not the coach that Andy Reid is. And Andy Reid compared Clyde Edwards-Helaire to
Ryan Westbrook, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So the best running back that Andy Reid has coached, pretty much. Yeah. He didn't even say he's as good. He said Clyde Edwards-Helaire is better than. And that's some crazy stuff to say when you think about what Brian Westbrook did under Andy Reid.
Right.
Plus knowing just the system, like Mahomes isn't afraid to flush out of the pocket and just check it down. And Helaire is one of the shiftiest backs in when he has space. Like watching him last year with Joe Burrow, it was crazy. And it's not like just checkdowns. He's a very comfortable playing, lining up as a receiver and going 10 plus yards downfield. And that's not something that you see with running backs very often. So they're going to utilize him a lot, I'd imagine. Jonathan Taylor's scary because of how good the Colts offensive line is. Like landing there and being, Taylor was probably the best pure running back in college last year. Honestly, he was probably, over the course of his career at Wisconsin, he was probably a top 3 running back every year. Like, he's that good. He's crazy. And they started utilizing him a lot more in the passing game. Wisconsin did this past year. So it's not like Jonathan Taylor's a one-trick pony by any means, but just the backfield that the Colts have currently, it's Taylor's probably going to be more the between the tackles guy, and I could imagine them shifting Marlon Mack to that Nyheim Hines role and Hines kind of falling off. So that's kind of what I envision. Who knows if it'll happen, but I don't know what the fuck the Lions were doing when they drafted DeAndre Swift.
That seemed weird.
Kerryon had an injury, right? And that happens, and it's unfortunate. I like Kerryon Johnson. DeAndre Swift is definitely a better running back than him. However, being in Detroit, there's nothing really to expect because they're going to use at least 2 running backs, most likely 3.
Oh yeah.
It's just a shitty spot for him to land if he landed say the Chiefs picked him, he would have put up insane numbers too. It's just like the system has a lot to do with running backs, as you all know. So
definitely. I'm just excited for Clyde Edwards-Helaire. We haven't had a running back with a hyphen since what, Maurice Jones-Drew? I mean,
yeah, the law firm.
That's my most important take as well.
Good. All right, then we can move on to wide receivers. So we had a lot. Obviously, as we know, it was a deep wide receiver draft, which is why the Packers didn't take one. And surprisingly enough, Henry Ruggs went to Oakland first out of any of the wide receivers. CeeDee Lamb notably went to the Cowboys, who some thought was the best wide receiver in the class, and Cowboys didn't even necessarily target wide receiver; he just fell to them. Jerry Jeudy went to the Broncos. Jalen Reagor went to the Eagles. Jefferson from LSU went to the Vikings. Seth, are you excited for Jefferson?
I very much am.
I feel like he could fit in well there.
Yeah, obviously we needed a wide receiver after having to trade Diggs, which I think, given the circumstances, we got a lot back for Diggs, considering clearly there was a rift with the team and Diggs wasn't happy, and he was one of my favorite players, and obviously gave us the Minneapolis Miracle, one of the highlights of my football watching career.
Crazy still.
And so it was sad to see him leave, and I wish it could have worked out, but accepting that had to happen, we got some good assets back, and then we're able to get what I understand to be a very good wide receiver prospect to kind of fill those shoes. As you alluded to earlier, hopefully he won't be another Laquan Treadwell, but yeah, at this point I'm optimistic, and I really think the Vikings overall did a really good job in the draft, filled some holes that were necessary, got a cornerback, which was one of the spots we really needed, and my dad's a Vikings fan as well, and he saw these different things and articles and like different forms of measurement. One was like a matrix that put together like all these different websites, different journalists' grades for all the teams' drafts. And
like the GPA?
Yeah, basically, yeah. And yeah, the Vikings were like number one if you added all of them up. So that's encouraging to me. As I've said, I don't watch college football, so I don't actually know anything about Justin Jefferson, but people tell me he's good, so it makes me happy.
Yeah, Justin Jefferson's a stud. I mean, obviously, it helps that you played with Joe Burrow under the best quarterback performance almost ever, for that season. But still, even without Burrow, Jefferson is just like he's a stud wide receiver. Like I said, this whole class was so stacked that like even second and even some third round wide receiver picks were such good values, and it's just crazy. Like Jefferson, one of the websites that I go to a lot for like prospects and stuff, they're saying based on his advanced measurements and his college performance and kind of just weighs everything, his best comparable player is Reggie Wayne. So
I'm okay with that.
Take that for what it's worth. If Minnesota landed a Reggie Wayne-esque player at the 22nd pick, like that's a home run.
For sure.
Kyle, if you had to pick one wide receiver that you're the most excited to see in the NFL, which one would you pick?
I feel like the obvious answer is CeeDee Lamb.
You're a big Reagor guy, though, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I got to go Jalen Reagor. He is in my opinion, if he was playing at Alabama or if he was playing with Joe Burrow, he would have put up a season that would have convinced the majority that he should have been the first wide receiver drafted. Like, he's that good. However, his quarterback play has been terrible his college career, and he's still put up some crazy numbers. But his last season, it was just horrific. He saw the least amount of accurate targets of any receiver in college football last year.
Jesus, who was his quarterback? Jordan Love?
No. I don't know. I don't remember the guy's name. He went to what was his name? Dugan?
He went to Dugan University?
No. Max Dugan. That was
well,
his
with a name like
quarterback.
that, you're not gonna be accurate. That's just I can tell you that right now.
Yeah, I'll show you his picture.
That definitely makes a difference.
There it is. This is the man. Can we see it?
Wow, he looks like he looks like he has no soul. Like there's nothing behind his eyes.
That's kind of true. His eyes look pretty blank in that.
Yeah,
photo.
no, he sucked. So, yeah, I think Jalen Rager's gonna put up some high end wide receiver numbers. I don't know if it's gonna be immediate, because of whatever happens with Alshon Jeffrey. If he's gonna be healthy, which I honestly don't know a whole lot of. I don't know if there's talks of him or not.
Everywhere he walks, he's never healthy.
Right, exactly. So, but I'm very excited. That was my favorite. There was talks that he wasn't going to go in the first round, and then the Eagles loved him so much that they took him, with the 20th pick or whatever. So
yeah,
I'm really looking forward to that.
I'm looking forward to seeing CeeDee Lamb in kind of like the Randall Cobb role in the Cowboys.
He's gonna go crazy in the slot.
Yeah, like the third wide receiver for them, and I think that he's going to benefit a lot of being in a good offense. So I think, he's not going to see the best guy on the other team, right? So
no, not at all.
I think he's going to put up some production the first year.
Yeah, I think CeeDee Lamb's definitely going to do that.
Do you have any other quick hitters you want to touch on about the draft, Kyle?
Bryan Edwards is going to end up being the alpha in Las Vegas over the 11th pick of Henry Ruggs. Henry Ruggs is fast, he's athletic, obviously, but Bryan Edwards is just like a different level. Like, Bryan Edwards played on the same team as Deebo Samuel in college for 2 years and essentially outproduced him categorically. Like, that's how good he is. He dominated. He's called breakout age. He broke out younger than 18. He broke out his freshman year, which is like unheard of. And he's just such a good player. He had some injury stuff, which I think is really the main reason that he fell, but supposedly he's completely healthy, and that's going to end up, in my opinion, being the absolute steal of the draft.
It's good they stole him there because they drafted Ruggs too early, in my estimation.
Yeah. But
all right, let's hit on some other NFL offseason things that are not the draft. Most notably, this kind of quarterback musical chairs we've got going on that's still going on, where there just aren't enough starting quarterback spots for veterans that want jobs. We had 3 notable players on the carousel. Jameis Winston, who ended up signing with the Saints as a backup to Drew Brees. Andy Dalton, who ended up signing in Dallas as a backup to Dak Prescott. And then Cam Newton, who, as of today, which is Cinco de Mayo, as you may know, is not landed on a team. So,
yeah.
Jameis goes to the Saints. Let's hit on that first because I think there's a large rift between us on Jameis Winston. I just don't think he's that good. I mean, he threw 33 interceptions and fumbled 12 times and also led the league in dropped interceptions.
But apart
this man
from that,
couldn't read a
what do you have
license
against
plate in front of him.
Now, he
The
did
car
get
in front of him, he
LASIK.
couldn't read a license plate.
Yeah, he did get LASIK in the offseason. It sounds like he had night blindness similar to myself, where I can't see anything at night unless there's a light on. And so maybe that'll turn it around. I don't know. He's going the Teddy Bridgewater, the Teddy Two Gloves route of revamping his career in the Saints, and he could find a starting job.
Work for Ted, yeah.
Yeah, like Teddy did. So, do you guys think Cam is just going to take a backup job?
No, I think Cam has actually said he is not signing with the team unless he's going to be starting.
So he's not signing with the team then, right? I mean, there's no teams left.
It depends on what Belichick wants to do, but yeah. They
Is he
sound
signing
pretty
with an
committed to
XFL
Jarrett
team?
Stidham, so it's
Yeah, they
unfortunate,
seem to
too.
be really talking up Jared Stidham in a way they never did with like Ryan Mallett and all those other fuckers, like Jacoby
Like,
Brissett, all them. They never talked them up.
Well,
yeah.
they were never going to be starting.
They
That's true.
talked
Maybe
up
they're
Jimmy
just
G.
talking themselves into it.
Yeah, Jimmy Garoppolo. But, you know, this whole quarterback situation that has played out in this free agency market with these veteran quarterbacks really makes you realize, or it should, as a Bears fan, how absolutely horrendous our front office is. Like, we decided to trade up, one spot for Mitch Trubisky 4 years ago in a draft that also had Deshaun Watson and Patrick Mahomes. And then they decided to trade away 6 years worth of picks for Khalil Mack, who made an impact for 1 year. And now just gets double teamed because the rest of the line is ass and we can't afford to get anyone else. And then decided to trade assets that we didn't have to Jacksonville to get Nick Foles, who was a perennial backup. And when he got a starting job, got outplayed by a rookie that was drafted in the 6th round. When Jameis Winston could have been had for $1 million.
Yeah.
Andy Dalton could have been had for $3 million. Cam Newton, you could give him Wendy's 5 for $5, and he probably would have signed. So I think I'm done.
You also forgot the fact that we have 6 tight ends on our roster and also drafted one in the draft.
Don't get me wrong. I'm a big tight end guy. I love him.
Huge tight end guy.
The toughest position on the football field. But
that's too many.
Our best tight end is still sitting 3rd on our depth chart. So
yeah, we're also paying Jimmy Graham's corpse like $9 million per year to sit as a
this man hasn't performed on a football field in 4 years.
It just brings me so much joy because it distracts me from the daily sadness it is to have Kirk Cousins as my quarterback. So I feel like with this whole carousel, actually, Cam is the most interesting piece to me.
Yeah. Cam's the best quarterback out of all of those that were available.
Yeah, obviously. Like, if he didn't have any
how I feel.
What have we learned over the last couple of years besides the fact that mobile quarterbacks are the key to winning consistently? As long as they're accurate, they're the key to winning consistently. Like, yes, Cam's been injured here and there, whatever.
Everywhere.
Okay, but he's still a better athlete than Andy Dalton, than Nick Foles. He's Mitch Trubisky on steroids that can throw a ball farther than 5 yards accurately. Can I tell you guys?
I just feel like I just real quickly, like, especially if you're one of those teams in the bottom half of the league, like, why not take a flyer on Cam? At least he'll sell tickets. Maybe you get lucky. He stays healthy most of the year, and he's like 80% of what he was as an MVP. You know, like, to me, that's what I would do. Take a flyer. Even if I was the Patriots, and it's like, all right, we lost the greatest quarterback ever. Hey, at least come, like, watch, we got Cam now. You know? I don't know. I would rather have Cam than Kirk Cousins, but that's obviously not going to happen.
Mitch Trubisky. So someone charted every starting quarterback's, it's called CPOE, completion percentage over expectation, based on depth of target. Mitch Trubisky only had a positive completion percentage over expectations on passes behind the line of scrimmage. That's the only spot on the field where he was expected to have a better completion percentage than average or expectations.
You know, it begs the question, with Jordan Love coming into the division, is Mitch Trubisky now the 9th worst quarterback in the division?
Well, that's tough. That is tough.
So who's the Vikings backup? Is he better?
Is it Sean Mannion still?
As far as I know. I don't know. He hasn't
backup quarterback.
Mannion.
Yeah, I mean, he's certainly a quarterback on the Bears, and then you've got Aaron Rodgers and Jordan Love, Matt Stafford, Kirk Cousins. Yeah, Sean Mannion's still our backup.
Is Kirk Cousins the best quarterback in the division?
No, Aaron Rodgers is.
I think it's either, at this point in their careers, I think it's either Kirk Cousins or Matthew Stafford.
No.
I don't think Rodgers has it anymore.
Stop it. You stop it.
He doesn't.
That's a classic Kyle take. That's an overreaction.
He doesn't have it anymore.
Kirk Cousins never had it.
Here's the thing. Rodgers doesn't have it mainly because he only has one wide receiver that can catch a ball. And if that wide receiver has anyone more than one man on him, he throws the ball out of bounds.
Well, it's not Rodgers' fault that he doesn't have as many weapons as other players. I would much rather have Aaron Rodgers on my team than Kirk Cousins.
I think he would ruin the integrity of the team.
That's true. Personality-wise, it could be difficult, but...
All right, let's move on to the NBA, shall we? I think we've exhausted our NFL talk for today. Just quickly, wanted to talk about what you guys think about how they could bring the season back, what the different options are, if they even should bring the season back. There's been a lot of talk of either the regular season is over, maybe they try to play a few games to get warmed up for the playoffs if they bring it back. Maybe they try to get to 70 games because that's when local TV revenue comes to the teams.
Yeah, they're going to do that.
At this point, fans and arenas are out, basically. The most feasible solution seems to be gathering the teams in a quarantined area such as Las Vegas or Disney World in Orlando. Las Vegas already has a lot of courts for Summer League, and they can stay in hotels there, obviously, and quarantine themselves there. Well, and also in Disney World, they do have a few courts there as well, and obviously owned by Disney. And Disney owns ESPN, so there's a lot of back and forth there, I'm sure. And Disney World's already kind of in a bubble over there. There's been talk of 8 to 12 teams in the playoffs only. There's been talk of 3 to 5 game rounds, maybe even 1 game rounds has been thrown out, which I don't think is going to happen because then the fucking Rockets wouldn't win and Kyle would be happy. We can't have that. And I guess the real question is, all that seems feasible, but there's going to be a lot of tests needed. Like, you probably have to test the players every day, or everyone involved, like, every day. And there's just not a lot of tests available for the common person. So is that really fair right now? And if things don't get better, should we really be allocating medical resources like trainers and doctors, to the quarantined NBA arenas when they could be fighting the case elsewhere? What do you guys think about the options and if they should bring the NBA back and how they should do it?
Well, for me, it's hard to say if they should bring it back. Obviously, I would love it, and it would make my life exponentially better. Some of the ideas seem like they could be safe to me. Obviously, lots of things could change with the progression of the virus and everything in the next couple months. I just keep coming back to, okay, what happens if someone tests positive during playoffs?
Right.
Is that whole team done? Just the playoffs just shut down entirely? Is that fair to that team? If the Bucks have one player who, tests positive and then they're disqualified, is that fair to them that everyone else gets a chance at the championship and they didn't because,
there's no way they can do it that way, right? I mean,
right. So then is it, okay, we just stop then? The whole playoffs is over? I don't know. I guess that would be kind of my question. Or do they just like that player is quarantined and they keep going?
It probably depends on the player, right? I mean, if it's Giannis, you're not going to keep going.
Yeah.
My thought on that is, I think now, after doing this for a couple months, at least I hope, I know personally I do, but as a society, understand the precautions that need to be, in place and need to be taken. And I think that was the whole thing. Obviously, at the beginning of this was we had no precautions in place. No one was caring about this at all. And like, fuck Rudy Gobert, I'll say it to the day I die, joking about it. And karma comes, bites him in the ass, and he starts this whole, I'm not going to say he gave everyone the NBA, but most of these players that came out and said that they tested positive, you could trace them back within a week to Rudy Gobert. Again, fuck Rudy Gobert. That's besides the point. I think I think teams are smart enough to know the precautions to take if they do this in, just a couple cities in one state, like Florida or so, that we could get away with, as long as there's no fans and we limit the people in the arena to, you don't need like security guards and shit in an arena if there's no fans. Right. That gets rid of hundreds of people right there. It gets rid of a lot of people. You just need coaches. You need players. That comes out to what, maybe 35, 40 people per team.
Yeah, I think you can get away with like maybe even like 40 people for everyone. Maybe 40 to 50 people in the room in general.
You probably could. Yeah, exactly. So obviously it's a worry, what happens if someone were to test positive when things come back around. But I think the NBA is in a good spot to be able to analyze what other sports are doing that are coming back slowly but surely. Like the Korean Baseball League kicked off last night. And let me tell you, it was riveting to watch a home run live. It was riveting. I watched.
I know you did. I knew you would.
They didn't have fans or anything, and just to be able to take in, and luckily they have a commissioner that's like ahead of this ship, and you got owners like Mark Cuban specifically who are very smart about stuff like this, and
yeah.
So I think that just like the infrastructure of the NBA as it is now is just too smart of an organization to put themselves in a position, if they do come back this season, that would destroy the rest of the season.
Yeah, I feel like I trust the NBA brain trust in those in power more than I do of like the NFL to make a smart decision.
Sure. Yeah,
exactly. And as far as the Gobert thing, I feel like also Gobert could have gotten it from Donovan Mitchell. Donovan Mitchell also tested positive. We don't know that Gobert gave it to Mitchell or vice versa. But it's lucky that they caught Gobert when they did, because that shut down all sports in the U.S. basically, which probably wouldn't have happened for another week or so. So it's a good thing that happened, Like if a player in the NBA hadn't tested positive for coronavirus, I think we would have been playing sports throughout that week and into the next. So it's a good thing that it happened. Worse. Yeah. So, yeah, I don't know if there's a way to do it. Obviously, I personally hope they do.
They're definitely going to play at least 70 games each. I can guarantee you that. If they come back, they're playing 70 games.
If they come back.
Yeah, if they come back, they're going to hit that 70-game threshold. There's no way that they come back and say, yeah, we'll take a game or two to warm up, No, they're going to get that TV revenue.
I heard, though, that national games don't count. So, like, if it's only nationally broadcast, you don't get the revenue. So you'd have to, like, play more than 70 for some teams.
Well, that's if it's only nationally broadcast, right?
Right.
So what if it's... I would assume that means if it's on...
I think that's only network. ABC, because ABC is cable. So I think if it's on ABC, it's not on anything else. I don't know. They'll figure it out. I mean, I think, like, everyone has such a financial interest in bringing it back, from the players to the owners to everyone involved in the NBA, that I feel like it's just going to happen in one way or another. But hopefully, we're at a spot where it's feasible to do that and makes sense to, in a safe way.
And you hear from all these players, they're like, any talks of us not coming back is bullshit. We want to come back. Like, this is our career. You know, we don't want to just say, screw it, we'll take the rest of the season off. No, I mean, you got LeBron going for another ring, and he's looked as best as he has in the last how many years? Like,
yeah,
I think he comes back.
And it's like, of course, they don't want to be away from their families for weeks on end, but like, their families would also rather than make money for them. So, you know, that's a consideration.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Especially for players that aren't making the millions, you know, especially for the players that are lower salaried players. I'm sure they're depending on.
I mean, I would assume that they would bring their families with them.
I don't know. Yeah, I was wondering
how
that. They might not get to. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, considering they're already living with their families.
Yeah, maybe it's like whoever you're living with.
What's the league to say? Well, you've lived with them for the last 3 months. You can't live with them now.
But the people you live with may not have interacted with that many people like they would be with the players and the coaches that they see on the trip, you know?
And what if, like, your wife or your kid goes to the grocery store, gets it, comes back, and then infects you, you know, while you're in Vegas or whatever?
I don't think they're going to the grocery store. I think they make enough to where they'll have this shit delivered.
I mean, I don't know. I feel like there's a possibility that someone won't be extraordinarily careful and could get it somehow. You know, going for a walk, walking the dog, whatever.
Always the possibility, yeah.
There's so many things to think about.
Increasing the risk, but maybe they will.
It's gonna be pretty hard to pull off. Like Seth was saying, there's just a lot of things that can go wrong, but let's hope they find a way. Teasing our next episode too, since the NBA regular season is basically over, or we won't have enough games to really sway our opinions. Next podcast, we're going to give out our end of season NBA awards, including MVP. What are the other ones? Defensive Player of the Year, Sixth Man, Coach of the Year, etc. So be looking forward to that on the next pod. Are you guys caught up in the Jordan documentary?
I am.
Of course.
Same. Boy, that Michael, huh?
It's a hobby.
I feel like I've definitely I guess I knew most of the stuff already, at least basketball and highlights wise and historical stuff, but seeing the inner looks at the people and how they were just naturally is interesting. And I don't know, I feel like Jordan's an asshole, and I always knew that, but I've kind of gained respect for him watching the documentary just because I feel like he's a very real person. Like, he knows who he is, you know? Like, seeing all the interviews with him, even at this age, he's just like, yeah, I'm still mad at Isaiah. He's an asshole. Like, yeah, I was mean to my teammates, but they needed to step it up, you know? It's just like, that's just who he is. And, I don't agree with all of his tactics, but he's not, like, a fake person, you know what I'm saying?
That's true.
I think it has kind of, this documentary, though, I don't know, is personified the right word? Like, it's made him seem a lot more relatable, I feel like.
Humanized him.
Humanized, there you go, yeah. Like, then originally, at least myself, I pictured him. Like, I just figured, you know, we didn't watch him growing up, right? I saw him on the Wizards, that was it. But, my vision of Jordan was, he was just always by himself. He was the fuck you guy. I don't want anything to do. But it was like, he wasn't like that at all.
Yeah, and it's like, I mean, listen, I don't feel bad for him for how he had to live his life, because obviously he made, you know, he's worth $1 billion or whatever, and he made a lot of money doing what he loves. But that's tough, man, to just go from the hotel to the practice facility or to the game or whatever, be mobbed everywhere you go. You can't go anywhere, right? There's that scene where he's just laying down on the couch, like, yeah, that's what I do all day. I sit in the hotel and watch TV. What else would I do? Like, he can't go anywhere. He can't just go out and go to the dinner. Honestly, or go to the club, because everyone mobs him.
He wasn't even, like, the way he comes off is like he wasn't interested in that. He didn't care. Right. If it wasn't basketball, he didn't want to be around it.
Yeah.
I don't think we're getting into this whole discussion, but I was thinking about this, and it always comes back down to how do we value him as a player. And a lot of people are talking about, okay, now after seeing this documentary, this is why MJ was the best. And I feel like you have to look at it holistically, where even though being in that position is really tough, some people are just able to handle that better than others.
Sure.
And MJ was someone who, in order to handle that, needed to take a 1.5-year break to go play baseball to get away from everything.
Right.
And whether you like it or not, for me, that's baked into his value as a player.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that he needs to take a 1.5-year break, if I'm thinking about I'm just drafting somebody to be like my franchise player, like that's going to be factored in. Whereas someone like who arguably has had even more media attention from a even younger age, his whole life, didn't need to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So I agree with you that it's like, yeah, that would suck as a human being. But to me, I feel like people give him a pass for that because it's like understandable, which it is. But some people did it better.
It's interesting.
Yeah, I don't know still how I feel about that whole baseball break. You know, did it have to do with gambling? Did it not? There's always going to be people that say yes. There's always going to be people that say no. I mean, the way he makes it seem is like this dude was the cream of the crop, the number one, the best player in the NBA since he entered the league. What was it? 8-9 years. Just come off 3 championships, and you're just like, man, I could see it like being like, man, I've done it all.
Mm-hmm.
Like no one's touching me. I don't have anything to worry about. Let me go try to be the best player in another sport. Like we don't hold it against, obviously it's Bo Jackson and he performed at a very high level in 2 sports. We don't hold it against him. I guess he didn't walk away for multiple seasons.
Yeah, he played both at the same time.
But I feel like that's kind of what Jordan's mindset was, hey, I'm the best at this. I can go away for even a year or 2 or however long it takes. I'll try to be the best in another sport that I was very good at growing up. And then if that doesn't work out, I'll just come back and dominate. And that's exactly what happened. So it's like, it's hard to,
I think the gambling part is interesting because like the way he talks about it, it's like he's obviously addicted to gambling. He's like, well, I'm not addicted to gambling. I'm addicted to competing. And I didn't lose enough money to like lose my house or my wife, so I'm fine. It's like, but like there was a theory someone said today on a podcast I was listening to. I think it was Bill, or I can't remember who, but they were like saying that maybe it was a factor in that Stern was gonna suspend him the next season, at least for part of the season for gambling. And he was like, that was maybe a factor in his decision. Like, well, if I'm going to miss part of the season anyway, fuck it. I'm just going to go play baseball. I could see that being a little more viable than Stern secretly. The theory is that Stern secretly told him to walk away for a year because he was gambling too much. There is no way that wouldn't have gotten out in a bigger way in the last 25 years. There's no way.
I think Stern would want that.
Right.
Exactly. That takes the biggest player away from the sport. And like him walking away for a year wasn't going to make him gamble any less. If anything, it was going to make him gamble more.
Exactly.
This guy was going to be at the golf course 3 times as much throughout the week, gambling with even better golf players.
Right.
And then to say, okay, now it's halfway through the season, you can come back. Like that just seems so like random. And I just think people were overcritical of him with the gambling. Like there's that whole story where he goes to Atlantic City, right? And, we don't know the exact timetable and everything. But when you think about it, okay, he goes to Atlantic City, say he gets back at 3 a.m.
He said they got back at midnight. Phil Jackson said
he said they got back at like midnight or 1. But even like worst case scenario, they get back at 3. He goes to sleep. He wakes up at 10, gets 7 hours of sleep, goes to practice at like noon. They have a shoot around. Whatever. Like they don't play until the night. It's not like
I think
he had to be up at 6. Like I don't even really see what the big deal is. And
I don't either.
He's Michael Jordan. His body is like different than every other human being in history. So clearly it's not going to impact him at all. So that part I think is like way overblown.
Overblown. I agree.
My mom and dad and I were talking about this at dinner the other day, actually, because I think for people who derive their livelihood from like being somebody that has fans, right? Like all athletes wouldn't make any money if nobody watched their games. I think when that is how you make your money, there's some responsibility to like be a role model. And that if you're not, because you're cheating on your wife or whatever, then people should stop watching you. And that is your punishment because that's how you make your money.
Yeah.
But to me, Jordan wasn't doing anything that really like
Right.
decreased his level of or his ability to be a role model. He wasn't breaking any league rules. He was gambling, but like they said in the doc, he was making millions of dollars. Like obviously he'll have a hand that's like $10,000 buy-in. That's
Right.
chump change for him.
That's
So I don't. To me,
$10 to us.
yeah.
Like
Uh,
like okay, he was this ultra competitive guy who gambled too much. Even if that was the case, like obviously he's not going to be perfect, and we just hold these athletes up as these idols and expect them to be perfect. There's not. Everyone has faults. Like if you dug into each one of our lives, people would be like, "Well, that putter hand kind of sucks," you know. Like it's just not going to be perfect. I think. Yeah, I think it was overblown as well. Okay, we jumped down a rabbit hole there, but I think that was
yeah.
good. Let's end this pod because no one can listen to us talk for more than an hour as it is, not even our significant others or families. So, any parting words, anyone?
On the third day, he rose again.
You already know.